Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Fans Tennis Podcast, and we've finally got the Australian Open, which is fantastic. Thought it might never come, especially with all the stuff that's been going around the tournament and outbreaks of this and that. But we've got it. It's here tonight/tomorrow because of the time zone. So when you wake up in the morning, you'll have some Aussie tennis on your TV sets or radio, wherever form you're looking at it. So I'm looking outside of my window. It's kind of snowy, sleety, and very cold. What about you, mate? Is it cold and snowy where you are?
Absolutely, Johnny. Just been out for a walk. I do believe London's going to have lows of -5 this week. I'd rather be in Melbourne watching the tennis in the sun.
Totally. I've forgotten how it feels like to have hot weather, especially with not being able to go away. But it's a nice place to be. So let's crack on to it because everyone wants to know what our kind of picks are for the first round matches with the women's and men's, and more importantly, where our money's going. So what about you, mate? Do you want to kick off with the ladies?
Yeah, sure. So you've got some clear favourite matches happening later on today and I make no apologies for saying the surnames wrong, but you've got Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova versus Naomi Osaka. Although Anastasia is number 38 in the world, everyone fully expects Naomi to walk through that first round comfortably without any issues, Johnny, in 2 sets at 4-1. You've also got some other great players playing, like Halep, for instance, Simona Halep. But of course, as we always know, unless you're going to pick games and how many sets those players are going to win in or what they're going to do in the tournament, there isn't a great deal of money to make at this stage on those players. So I'm more interested in some of the more unknown players, Johnny. So for instance, I have my eyes on the match that's happening between Tamara Sindansek from Slovenia and Serena Dias from Kazakhstan. What's interesting about these players, Johnny, is that Serena has a 1-0 head-to-head against Tamara, but everyone fully expects Tamara to come through and win this match, maybe in 3 sets. And when I look at how the bookies favour these players, it's no surprise to see that although Tamara is slightly behind when it comes to world rankings, she is the clear favourite to win. But there is still some good money to be made. So, for instance, Serena Dias is at 11-10. Tamara Sindansek is at 4-6. So that has my interest. And I'm going to fully back Tamara Sindansek for one reason. Although Serena does have a head-to-head of 1-0, if you look at their previous tournaments, last year at the Australian Open, Tamara Sindansek did get through to second round, whereas Serena didn't. I know that, it's very, very close to call because both players are in the top 80s, but I fully see in 3 sets Tamara Sindansek coming through.
Are you going for both the match outright and the sets?
Usually I like to bet on sets, but I think it's so close, it's so equally matched. I'm just going to go for an outright winner at 4-6 on Tamara.
That's good value, isn't it, really?
Yeah, that is good value, yes.
Because like we said in our previous podcast, it's not just betting on a match. Some bets are just not worth it because the value's not there in the odds, and it's about picking your bets and everything else. So I get what you mean. I've not come across that one actually, that tennis player, but I will do now and have a look at it. Any more on the women's side before I kick off on my side?
No, that's the match that I'm going to be more interested in the result. I think it's pretty obvious that it would be shock horror, as we say, for somebody like Naomi Osaka or Halep to go out so early on in the Australian Open.
We've had a few shock horrors prior to the advent of technology, so we know by experience. So never count your chickens, but do your homework. We're on the ladies' side is our very own Katie Bolter against Daria. I'm just Kina. You got to get used to our pronunciation, everybody, because we're not the greatest. We really aren't, but we try. The reason I pick out that match, I quite fancy Katie Bolter. Really good odds. 15-8. Daria is 4-11. Her idol Daria was Rafael Nadal. She wanted to be the female equivalent. Her strength really is on the clay. She was on the rise, and when I've done some bets with Daria, she's actually cost me in previous times. But I just think her form and her trajectory has been really in and out. She was on a kind of upward trajectory, and she was going to make the top 10 and everything. There was big talk about her, but for some reason, the last year and a half, it's not really been that way. Hence, I think why the odds are so close, because if you got the old Daria, who was beating top 10 players and stuff, you would have some really long odds. And I think Katie Bolter, it's always a tough one sometimes with the Brits, because you try to back, fly the flag and back them, but they then end up disappointing you. So it's a risky one. And you've also got Heather Watson against Pitskova. That's more narrow, but I'm not going to go with Heather. She's lovely, but she never makes me any money. And every time I have done, it's true. It's always cost me. So that's from a British perspective that I found interesting, and I'll be looking at on the ladies' side for me. What about you on the men's side?
Well, I certainly, we can talk about outright winners. We can talk about just the matches. At the moment, I still think that it's going to be very, very interesting play from Daniel Medvedev and Novak and Dominic Thiem. And I'm not saying the office here, but if you just take the fact that Russia won the ATP Cup.
And who predicted that?
Fair enough, Johnny. Yeah. And I was still running with the fact that I thought that, Team Serbia would do it. But the interesting thing at the moment about what Novak has said recently is that I read an article that Novak, in great Novak style, has been, making his usual complaints allegedly about this, that, and everything else, which we all know is actually quite a good sign when it comes to Novak's ability to play tennis, because we know when he's kind of outspoken, he's actually in the zone. And what's interesting about the Novak situation is that Novak has admitted, or he has at least said that, even he is questioning his form, because he hasn't won a Grand Slam since the Australian Open of 2020. So it's been a whole year. So on one side of the table, you've got Willie get to the final, Willie win it against some great other players like Nadal that's on top form at the moment, your Dominic Thiem, your Daniel Medvedev and Tsitsipas and all the rest of it. But he is keen and he is talking fighting talk, Novak. So whether he's going to win it or not, I know I said in previous podcasts, I think he will. I still think somehow Novak will be somewhere in that mix. And I still believe that he will get to the final because Novak is talking, fighting talk that he wants to win a Grand Slam. But just bringing it back to current matches that are going to happen, I have to say, I am excited. I am really excited about the Jannik Sinner versus the Denis Shapovalov match, because you've got two fantastic youngsters, two brilliant youngsters who have never met before.
No,
never played.
But
before.
We highlighted them, didn't we, mate? In our
yes, we
ones
did.
To watch.
We did. And on the table, you could argue, right, that Shapovalov is the clear favourite to win because he is in the top 11 in the world, and Jannik Sinner has now hit that top 50. in the last year. But this is the but. Jannik Sinner at the moment is on fire. He is on absolute fire. His performance is outstanding. And if you just Google and read Ferry's articles, I'm reading it thinking I am feeling it the same as what everyone else is saying. Yes, he is the dark horse in this tournament. Yes, he hasn't got the experience of
Dennis Menace, Shapovalov,
of Dennis. Sorry, I'll just say Dennis. Keep it simple. He hasn't got his experience. He hasn't got his Grand Slam experience. He is a dark horse, but he won the Sofia tournament and he got to the final of the Great Pacific. The Great Ocean Road Open as well. And personally, I think it's going to be either a 4-set, 5-set epic, or it's just going to be straight sets. Personally, I've got to run with Jannik Sinner. He is the underdog and the odd good value.
I have to agree with you. I'm going to go with Sinner because although Dennis, when he's on his form, he can be, tantalizing and amazing. I don't trust Dennis so much when it comes to my pocket. And I just got this feeling for Sinner, especially after what I saw with, the French Grand Slam and what he did with Nadal. He tested him more than anyone. So it's a tough one. It's, you hold your fist in your mouth kind of thing match because he could go any way. But, what he did with Zverev as well in the Grand Slam of the French, I feel what you're saying. And I think the odds are really good as well.
Set 7-4 on Jannik Sinner. And also, he's teamed up with Nadal. He's been Nadal's training partner. Nadal wanted to train with Jannik because of his style of playing. This is, a young Italian lad that I'm absolutely positive is going to win a few Grand Slams in his lifetime.
I agree.
And he's a dark horse. And I know for a fact that all those players out there, whether you're Novak, whether you're Nadal, you are going to walk onto that tennis court knowing that this young boy has sorry, Jannik, young man, has everything to give and nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And his confidence with the last finals that he's been in last year, I see it as being an epic. I think it could be even, one of the great opening matches of the Australian Open
in the morning, isn't it? As well, so it's good for TV time. That one, it's not one of those ones because the thing about the Australia Open is that you sleep through some of it because you just can't stay up. But it's the morning match, our time, their nighttime match. So I can't wait.
What time is that, Johnny? 9:30.
9:30. Yeah. So whilst working, the TV will be on. One eye on what's going on with that one. Any other standout on the men's side?
That's just where I'll be honest. That's just where I am with it at the moment. I don't want to, run ahead too early. I'm just thinking about what's going to happen later on today. I think you've got a few really good matches in that first opening round. I'd like to see Simona, regain what Simona is about, but I'm not completely sure that will happen. I think she might get to, maybe quarterfinals, semi-finals, but I fully expect it being very predictable between Simona and Osaka. And I'm 100% gonna run with the underdog, Jannik Sinner against Dennis. Of course, you got Novak in there with his opening game at the same time against Jeremy Chardy.
There's no value in that.
Yes,
it's like 1 to 300 or something, isn't it?
Yeah, let's be honest.
Games or
yeah. I fully expect that to be going the way that it should. And even Simona Halep is at 1 to 25. So regardless of, Simona's form last year with the French Open and all the rest of it, 1 to 25 is telling you that it shouldn't be too difficult for these top players to go through their first round comfortably.
Yeah, I agree. There's no value in those ones. It's just picking games and points, and that for me is too risky, and is anyone's game. My standouts on the men's side: Dimitrov versus Cilic.
Okay.
What a popcorn match! We've got obviously Cilic, former US Open champion, and Dimitrov, who's the nearly man in tennis, baby fed and all of that, but never quite hit those heights, but did win the ATP End of Tour Championship, has been his main career highlight. Very tight odds here, Rob. We've got 4-7 for Dimitrov and 5-4 Cilic. So the bookies are finding it very difficult to call. I'm finding it difficult to call because my head's going back one way to another, because Dimitrov, again, is one of those players. He plays beautifully and stuff, but I can't trust him when I put a bet on him. And Cilic, he's been on a downwards spiral really since the heydays of the Wimbledon final.
Yeah, agree.
He's reached quite a lot of Australian final and stuff like that, but he's not quite the same old Cilic. So this one's a tough one because they're both not really on the right trajectory. They're more on a downward trajectory. So he's which one you're going to pick that's less of a downward trajectory. So I'm going to say Cilic on that one.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, Johnny. At the same time, you've got Pablo Carreno Busta versus Nishikori. Again, I completely expect Pablo Carreno Busta to come through that match.
What's the odds though, Rob?
Well, the odds on that, he's at 3-10. Pablo Carreno Busta to win, no. And Nishikori at 11-5. You've also got, interestingly, you've got Serena Williams, who is fully expected to come through against Laura Sigmund, but I don't believe that Serena Williams is going to win the Australian Open. I think she'll do what Serena Williams does. She will fight her way through, the rounds quite comfortably until we get to about quarterfinal.
So my last other pick for the matches tomorrow, because obviously what we're doing, we're going to just do kind of hit you with our kind of picks, and then the next day do our review of the picks, and then pick our other picks of the next round, is the Berrettini versus Kevin Anderson match. And Kevin Anderson, former Wimbledon finalist, I think he's maximized every inch of his talent, every inch of that 6'7" frame. And Berrettini, which again is one of those new Italian kind of high, stars, a little bit older and a little bit further on trajectory in some ways than the Yannick Sinners. He's about 23, 24. He's a bit of a lump when you look at him, he's got quite a bit of a presence as our old Berrettini, and he's been competing in the ATP Cup quite competitively, although lost quite comprehensively to Medvedev in the matchup that they had. So who am I going to pick? Again, it's one of those ones. You've got Berrettini, who, former US Open semi-finalist, on an upward trajectory, young, hungry, looking to improve, got obviously weakness for his game. Not one of my picks for the outrights. I'm going to pick Berrettini because I just think with Anderson, he's not on the right trajectory. He's had quite a few injuries, and you've got to go with the form. Is whether the odds, again, represent that much value. I'm not sure, to be honest. So I'm going to have to see. Sometimes when I'm doing my bets, and I think we've spoken about it, I sometimes wait, and I hope that the one who's got the favorable odds, maybe loses the first set, then I can start recalibrating, then jump in, then do it right at the start. So it may be one of those ones to pick out. In terms of my outrights, my outright, I'm going to go with Medvedev. I think. Obviously, very hard to ignore Novak. Very, very, very hard to ignore Novak. And you got the quartet that I would say. You've got Novak, Nadal, Medvedev, and then a choice between Tsitsipas or just another. I think I actually think out of those is really it's going to be Dominic Thiem, of course. Forgive me, I've had a bit of an early night, late night with the old twins. But yeah, I think I'm going to go Medvedev, and I think I'm going to go Medvedev Thiem. Yeah, I said it. That's my outright.
Yeah, I think Medvedev is going to do really, really well. I'd like to see him in the final. Actually, I'm slightly heading towards your idea of Medvedev and Thiem. Somehow, will it be? Maybe it will be a Novak Thiem, probably.
Or Nadal and Novak.
Yeah,
The old
it's
guard.
so hard to call. It really is.
Really?
Yeah, crikey.
I know.
I'm going to say Novak Thiem.
But what's the odds on the outright? Just let me check it again on the men's. Let me check on the outright because I know when we were looking at it before, it was like a whole bunch of them that were like 6-5, 6-5, and that was like Medvedev. It was like Thiem, and it was Tsitsipas. So the odds are latest odds 13-10 Novak, 4-1 Medvedev, 5-1 Thiem, 11-2 Nadal, 12-1 Tsitsipas, 16-1 Zverev, and I think I'm going to stop there because I think that's the only one. You got Kyrgios, always wild and dangerous and talented, but his mindset is just I can't trust him at all, and he's never gone really past fourth round for a while, apart from the early stint from Wimbledon when he beat Nadal. So those are the odds. There's good value in that in Medvedev Thiem, I really must say, and Nadal even 11-2.
Yeah. I'm going to have to back Dominic Thiem and Novak, and I generally do quite well on my predictions when it comes to what the finals will be. Like I said on previous podcasts, I called a Nadal and Novak final in the French Open, and it happened. I just think that obviously no one expects Novak to win this tournament. Everyone expects one of the other players to, because they've just been on better form. However, you just can't write Novak out, and Novak knows he needs to win another Grand Slam pretty quickly, and he needs to up his game because the youngsters are getting better, and I think that's what Nadal's done. Nadal upped his game and he got his French Open last year, but it has been a year since the Australian Open, so I fully expect Novak to get to the final. It's just a case of whether it's going to be Nadal, Thiem, or Medvedev. I don't see anyone else. I see Tsitsipas getting to semi-final. I fully expect Tsitsipas to get to the semi-final, but I see Tsitsipas being knocked out by someone like Dominic Thiem.
Yeah, it's very hard to go against those four. Whereas the women's one, the ladies' event is much more open-ended. You could pick about 20. 15 to 20 of them, really.
Well, you got Barty, you got Osaka, you got Halep, but I definitely think, and I don't know why, but I think Osaka is going to be in the final. I think
my lady's prediction is it's so hard, but I'm gonna go with I think a final of Halep, and I'm gonna go. I'm toying with this one. I'm gonna go with Bianca Andreescu. Great odds, Rob. 16-1 on Bianca, who won the US Open before she didn't take part last year due to pandemic and injury. So I'm gonna go with Bianca and Halep. Halep's 11-1.
She's a great player, Bianca, and I've always loved Halep, and Halep's done quite well for me.
Yeah, she's done well for me. Yeah, I agree.
Halep has made me a little bit nervous because of how last year went.
Yeah, but she tends to do that. You know, she's not someone who's like robotic in her winning. But when her mind's on it, and she's got the right kind of coach and support with Cahill, um, yeah, and she's got good previous form. You know, so many in the women's one, to be honest. It really does carry a health warning. You got Kenin, you got, you know, Azarenka, you got, you know, Kvitova, you've got a lot of Iga, obviously.
I don't think
But
Iga's going to get this one. I think for Iga to win the French Open, she was absolutely amazing on that clay surface. I'm not. I. It's not for. Iga is one of my favourite up and coming players, along with Goff as well, Kofi. Sorry, and I just don't believe. I don't see Iga coming through the Australian Open. I see her, maybe, getting to quarter final in this tournament, perhaps. I could be wrong. I think, it's a bit of a come down on the back of the French Open. I just think there are better players out there. And let's not forget, and I know I said it again, you got Naomi Osaka, who won the US Open. She didn't play in the French. And she hasn't played in many of the other tournaments since the US Open. So you've now got these other players that have come back into the mix.
And she lost against Williams.
Yeah, absolutely.
Straight sets, which surprised me, actually. It did surprise me. So Williams as well, Serena Williams, 10-1. But I'm going to stand by it. She will not win another Grand Slam. So those are...
I agree. That's one thing we can agree on.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're going to get in some...
I want to see, Johnny, what I want to see is, and I know Simona, Simona has done really well for me and she's a great player, right? But, all the tennis analysts were saying that last year she was just off, she didn't have her form. And I think, you could see that in her emotion as well. But I will never forget the final. And I absolutely called that final, and so did you, in the Wimbledon final, where I said this is going to be straight sets to Simona Halep against Serena Williams. Yeah. And it's not going to be a close game. This is going to be a thrashing.
Yeah.
And it was a thrashing. I want to see that from Simona Halep in the Australian Open. And you know me, I can chop and change, but I think Osaka is going to do well in this tournament. Halep, I see it. Bianca, I see it. But as we know, you could have 30 different women professional tennis players in that mix for the final.
Yeah, that's why it's so hard on the women's side. So we're going to evolve with the women's side because it does carry a health warning, and we'll be focusing on the matches and everything else. But outright, women, I'm going to say Bianca Andreescu is going to be the champion against Halep. And on the men's side, Medvedev against Thiem. And that's it. So until tomorrow, we'll see how well we've done or not.